I find it kind of interesting that there's been a decent number of Ranger-related reviews, but hardly any love for Turtles. And Turtles was that first real fad that I was sucked into in my youth, so let's remedy that right now. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Follow the Foot Clan for the Nintendo Game Boy is the first of 3 TMNT games to grace the Nintendo Game Boy. It's a basic side-scrolling platformer where you move to the right all the while taking out foot soldiers, mousers, and other enemies. After going through a couple areas, you'll fight a boss, beat him, and you move on to the next stage. There are 5 stages total in the game, and for the most part they mostly follow the same premise. There'll be some platforming elements here and there, some obstacles you might have to avoid here and there, but for the most part it's mostly move to the right and occasionally kill some foot soldiers and other foes. There's a bonus game tossed in at times where you can collect pizzas or attempt to rescue fallen turtles, but it does little to deviate from the rather simplistic nature of the game. I like the fact that you could choose any level to your liking. It's a rather nice touch, and people with little patience to play through the entire game can pick a level and be done with it. If nothing else, it makes for good practice if you're having trouble with the later levels. However, if you want to see the game's full ending, you need to play from start to finish, and that'll take less than half an hour. At most. In fact, Fall of the Foot Clan is not nearly as difficult as I thought it would be. That is to say that if you manage to play through the whole game like a complete idiot, you'll still manage to make it very far in the game or even beat the game on your first shot. Mind you, the game still requires a bit of effort on your part to be conquered because there's still a couple trouble spots. The bosses are no pushovers either, but on a whole, it's nowhere near as difficult as the original NES TMNT game or even the arcade-style brawlers that would follow. Certainly nowhere near as long, but for a game on the go, that's just fine. Control-wise, TMNT is not bad. Responsive, basic, simple. I like that you could shoot shurikens while crouching. It's a nice touch, and it gives you an additional long-range attack that could help out in some cases. The jumps are a bit too floaty for my taste, and your turtle does move rather slowly for the most part, but aside from that, it's manageable. It's not what one would call broken, but rather just a bit sluggish overall, but I guess the trade-off is that the game doesn't blur all that often. A moot point of playing on anything other than an original Game Boy model, which was a blurry beast indeed. The graphics in Fall of the Foot Clan are pretty basic. When it comes to level design, the levels are barren looking. There's not much to them, really. The sprites themselves look pretty detailed for the most part, looking to have been inspired by the characters' designs of the TMNT arcade game, or at the very least the NES conversion of the equivalent game. The turtles look a bit better here than they did on the NES though, especially when they're idle, but that's a story for another time. The bosses are huge beasts. Detail, nicely done, yes, but just huge, massive. They towered the turtles, even Shredder, who by all accounts is a normal-sized human, but I digress. Solid sound in TMNT. There isn't much to the sound effects. They're okay at best, tolerable at worst. Nothing really outstanding in that department. To the game's credit though, the classic Turtles theme from the old cartoon is played almost in full in certain levels, and treated with much reverence in these instances. It's just a really decent interpretation on the Game Boy. The rest of the game's tunes are alright I suppose. Nothing terrible, nothing great, just okay. Overall, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Fall of the Foot Clan is a respectable first effort on the Game Boy, combining the platforming aspects of the NES original with a partial brawling aspect of the arcade game. Fall of the Foot Clan manages to turn out a decent little action game that's nice for a rainy day. It is a quick game, however, with very little replay value. So while this might be fun for a quick trip or diversion, anyone looking for a deeper gaming experience with long-term enjoyment might not want to consider TMNT at all because it really doesn't offer that. With that having been said, however, if you're into the classic TMNT cartoon or just want to pick up a really quick game on the go, then Fall of the Foot Clan makes for a welcome diversion and a satisfying romp through the murky sewers and stuff. This one's okay.